Tonight, what's going on for tonight? We've got David Bright is here, who is the Southwest Valley representative for the mayor's office. He is new to that position. For those of you who are just joining us, as a result, we will try not to give him too much of a hard time. He's brought along Kevin Keller from the city office as well to talk about ED1 specifically, because it is a very detailed and problematic area from, I think, from a lot of people. The mayor doesn't think so, but I think a lot of us homeowners do. But hopefully we'll get some clarification and maybe some of our fears will be put aside so we don't have to worry about these things as much as we have in the past. Some of the issues we're going to talk about, of course, is about ED1. We're going to want to know what is it and why is it? And is the mayor's intent really to try to get rid of the single family homes? I want to talk about public safety, especially with MTA and another stabbing we just had on that. The mayor sits as the president of the MTA board. She's got a great deal of that she can do in wielding her political pressures on those particular issues. Also looking to see what's going on with the fire departments and the police departments with their staffing. We have a budget that just came out that the mayor presented. A lot of cutbacks on some things. They're not going to be rehiring a lot of people that are in those positions that are now vacant. I want to talk about that as well. And most importantly, we're going to want to take your comments so that those comments can be fed back to the mayor's office through David, and I think that's very important. So feel free with two issues. Number one will be to ask the questions that you feel that are important, that you need to get some information for. But also, this is one of those times where I'm going to let the reins a little bit looser so that you can actually make more comments about those things that are actually concerning you and what you think the mayor should be doing about them and why they're an issue to us out here at this particular point. So at this stage, I'm going to pin David and Kevin up on the board so that they will take over the predominant positions here so that you don't have to be looking at me. That's probably the most important thing. And I will turn it back over to them. And most importantly, I think for starting off, David, I think what I would like to know, and I think the group would like to know as well, who are you? What the heck is this position? Are you a deputy mayor? Are you a representative? Where did you come from before? What can you do? What can't you do? What input do you have to the mayor? And how much information do you know? And what's your background? In other words, what do you know and why do you know it? Okay. David Bright, floor is yours.
Sounds good. So what do you think about this, John? I do kind of like a slight introduction for myself, and then we get Kevin going because I know I want to be, sensitive of his time, and we'll get into ED1 right away, and then go into the other stuff after. Is that okay?
David, I think that's absolutely perfect. I think no problem with that at all. And again, also same thing for you, Kevin, when you come in. We want to know who you are, what do you know, and why do you know it? Okay, so that's the major big three. David, go ahead with it, and we'll turn it back over to Kevin as soon as you want to there. Okay.
Okay. So I think the number one thing that I would like to say is give me those tough questions, give me those hard comments, the tough comments that you have. I can take them. John, he's alluding, maybe I won't be able to take them because I'm new, but I do have experience. I can take them. I want them because then we can take that back to Mayor Bass and get more information and get more help out here in the West Valley. So my name is David Bright. As of last month, I'm the new West Valley area rep for the Office of Mayor Bass. And what that means is I cover council districts 3 and 12. You're all in CD3. I'm your representative for the mayor's office. And then how I see that role is in one sense, I'm an ear, right, for this area, for the West Valley. And I'm trying to get connected to as many different people as possible, as many different viewpoints, as many different communities, organizations. And I want to know everything that is going on in the West Valley. I hope to know everything that's going on, because that's how we can use that information and start working towards, solving problems in the West Valley or kind of addressing our concerns. And then the flip side of that is I'm the communication piece. So, we have, if once I have those connections with everyone, I want to be able to take those concerns, listen to everyone, take all the event information, all these kind of things. And then on the flip side, I want to be able to share everything that's going on for the mayor's office and share what we're doing, what the city is doing. And that's kind of like the primary role. And so if you ever want to, get connected to the mayor's office, you want to bring something up to our attention. It could be a pothole It could be a big citywide issue. If it's a pothole, I'll coordinate with Councilmember Bloomfield's office. If it's a bigger issue, I can take that and bring it to our team's attention. And so that's primarily it. And I'll do a little bit of background stuff, but I do have experience with both the municipal city level. So I worked in Long Beach for a councilwoman there, and at the state level. So I have a little bit of background on some of the state laws that have happened in the past few years. And I think that's the quick kind of overview. And so I'll pass it over to Kevin. We'll get into ED1.
That sounds good. Also, Bob Singer, I see that you've got your hand up. I'd like to get into the ED1 first before we start taking some questions on some things. So hang on, let's get some of the stuff going on ED1, and I'm sure that there's going to be some questions that come out of that. Unless you've got something that's heated, and if it is, you can put it down in the Q&As, and we'll see if we can follow up with that. Okay, Kevin, you're up. You have to unmute yourself, though. There you go.
Great. Thank you so much, John. There it goes. Thanks so much, John. Thanks for having me here tonight. Hello, Woodland Hills. I see Dennis DiBiase. It's been a long time. I got to work with him in years past. My name's Kevin Keller. I'm the Deputy Mayor for Mayor Bass on housing. I'm actually a city planner. I hear that's next month. I'm not with the city planning department at the moment, but I've been with the city planning department in LA City for over 20 years. I've been working with Mayor Bass on some economic development, some jobs. I was assigned to the Executive Directive-1, which we'll talk about today a little bit. And about a little under 2 months ago, I was asked to step into the role of Deputy Mayor for housing. So I'm spending a lot of time on housing, but happy to give a quick overview or just some background on Executive Directive-1, what that is. And then John, really take your lead and the group's lead. Happy to answer any questions that could come up. So, John, should I just spend a few minutes going over what the program is? And
yeah, please.
Would you like to?
Why did we need it to begin with? Why? First of all, what is it? Why is it an emergency directive from the mayor's office? What is she trying to accomplish with it? And what was this whole mess up that started on the first beginning with it that really caused some problems out here in the valley that had to be corrected? Why wasn't that foreseen to begin with? Again, I'm assuming you gave some advice in this particular process. Somebody missed the ball on that first one that went out and caused some serious problems in here. So give us some clarification. What is it and why is it?
Yeah, we can explain. I can give a little bit of background on that. So when the Mayor Bass took office last November, actually 2022 November at this point, and in her first week in office, she declared an emergency on housing and homelessness. Was very clear about that. That was going to be her central focus, was tackling homelessness. And as part of that, in her first week, she declared an emergency and introduced 3 executive directives. Executive Directive-1, we'll talk about here, 2 and 3. Just for 2 and 3, 2 is called Inside Safe. That's the encampment resolution, finding permanent homes and interim homes for homeless individuals to resolve their street encampments. Number 3, not as popular, but it's looking at city land and using city land for a resource that can promote housing and interim housing solutions. So I can talk about those both, but Executive Directive-1 was to accelerate and create more affordable housing in the city. So what that program does, it waives and creates a more streamlined process for projects, and I think we'll get into this question, for projects that are otherwise compliant with the zoning code. So the idea behind the initiative was, it's an emergency, we need more affordable housing. If a project is coloring within the lines and is following the zoning, checking all the boxes, and there are a lot of boxes to check these days, if it's a compliant project and it's 100% affordable housing as defined by the program, and I can go into that a little bit too, that project would not require public hearings, additional environmental analysis, and appeal. So it's a big deal. It would become what we call ministerial. If you color within the lines, proposing 100% affordable housing that matches all the zoning requirements, it would be accelerated through the system.
Kevin, do you recognize that just while somebody is coloring within the lines, as you put it, that nevertheless that may still have an adverse impact upon the community that the zoning laws maybe didn't really recognize, and that's why we have those public hearings on things. Was that taken into consideration when they stripped away that public hearing and the rights of appeal on it, to where it's just you color in the lines, whatever it is, if you got affordable housing, it's going to go? Was that taken into consideration at all?
Yeah, well, that was the idea of this program, was to say that projects that do follow the zoning, and I want to talk about that single family issue because that was a very hot item, and I think you're raising some good points there. Projects that follow the zoning would not require that public hearing. They would have more certainty. Currently, generally speaking, I know we have the Warner Center specific plan. Outside of specific plans, generally projects that are under 50 units are currently by right, but over 50 units, you're going to usually trigger some kind of review, like site plan review. Projects that are near certain other uses trigger hearings. So all of those hearings would not be required for these affordable housing projects under ED1 that are otherwise zoning compliant. I think I hear what you're saying. There was a lot of discussion of that, but generally there could be understanding, at least understanding of the concept of saying, if it's following the zoning code, let's try to get it finished earlier. The executive directive was very clear that if you need a zone change, if you're asking for a variance, if you're asking for what's called a general plan amendment, kind of changing the rules, that would kick you out. That would be back to the old process, go to our planning commission, hold a hearing, go to the city council, things like that. I think what John was hinting at, and there was a component of ED1 that dials into state law. I can go into the short version of the long version. We'll do the short version first. That allows the use of the state density bonus program. And there was a new law that came into effect January of 2023 that if you basically combined a little, the density bonus program here found a certain size single family lot with a certain category of a general plan designation in certain portions of the valley, we started seeing projects coming in that were multiple family apartments in single family zones. Okay. So that was not the intent of ED1. ED1 was to, streamline apartments where apartments are already zoned for, and to not have apartments in single family areas.
Well, that's
not
the
saying
problem. We look at SB 9 and SB 10. The state legislature has really taken over control of taken away a local control on that and said, listen, we're going to allow people in single family areas to be able to put in as many as like 8 apartments, maybe even more in some of those locations unsubdivided. And these people snuck in under the ED1 and said, hi, we're going to come in and do that, when that wasn't the mayor's intent. And those things have had some difficulties getting stopped at this point. How did
I can give an update on it.
Who messed that one up? Who's listen, do we blame the mayor for that mess up? Do we blame you for that mess up? Who had the final wet ink on the paper that said this is what we're doing and forgot about that?
Yeah, so I'd like to explain what happened, and then we can talk about however it was done, and I can explain the mayor's position and the resolution on that. So you mentioned, and for the group, SB 9 is the state duplex bill, or if you do 2 duplexes with an ADU, it's up to 4 units. SB 10 is a rezoning bill. It doesn't actually do anything, but it allows cities to rezone up to 10 units. Not that LA has used that, but allows cities to rezone up to 10 units in a more quick manner, but that has not been implemented in LA to date. AB, if you want to follow all of them, AB 2334 was the bill from 2023, which allowed, under the existing state law, and I think that's a theme that I think is coming up here, about state laws do apply to LA. They're, I think, well-intentioned, but they are broad brush, and they can have impacts that may have been thought about, may not have been thought about. That state law allows you to use the general plan density of an area. And there are certain portions of the valley that, although they're single family, the general plan includes a multifamily zone. That being said, none of these projects were approved and were initially approved by the planning department. And in fact, planning rejected all of the projects based on inconsistency with Executive Directive-1. Under an existing state law, so the mayor did not support the projects being apartments in proposing, streamlining apartments in single family zones. I want to be really clear about that. And also our planning department also felt the same way and did not process the applications. Under state law, it's possible to appeal those decisions to the city council. There was, I want to say 6 or 7 of these applications that were submitted. The mayor issued a revision to Executive Directive-1 in June of last year that was to clarify what was always intended, is that it follows the zoning. If it's single family zoning, that means it's single family. If it's zoned for apartments and it's 100% affordable, you can streamline that. So one of those projects was granted on appeal, and one of those projects is still proceeding. I actually spoke, you asked about what we've been doing. I was actually speaking at that hearing in opposition to that on behalf of the mayor. But there is one project that is currently alive. Lots of litigation back and forth on all the projects,
Yep.
but only one of the projects is currently moving forward as multiple family.
Here's what we're concerned about out here. Of course, as you hear from us, that we haven't really had the mayor come out here to talk to us. She's come out and talked to some other groups. I see Kathleen Sterling's on here and had her hand up a moment ago, and we'll get to her in just a moment too on this. But the problem has been, it seems like nobody's paying attention to what's going on out here in the valley. Who's got the responsibility for the mess up on this thing? There was somebody who said this is what the suggestion is, and overlooked the possibility of what was going to end up happening from a practical standpoint here in the valley. Who takes responsibility for that? Is that the mayor?
The mayor issued Executive Directive-1. She issued it before that state law took effect, and that state law took effect. So if it's Executive Directive-1, that's a Mayor Bass program. That being said, the moment those projects came in, the mayor revised the program. None of those projects were initially approved, and they appealed under an existing state law. So for the project that is currently going, that project did have its own city council hearing. Ultimately, the city council did vote to authorize that project to proceed. But the overall ED1, that is a mayor's program. The state law is, as we know, complicated. And I think that's something, I hear some hands. I don't want to ramble on, but it is the mayor's program.
It would really help if you would tell us where that single project that's still moving forward is. Is that the one on Del Marino?
No. The only project that is that was approved, all the appeals were denied except for one. That is the what's called the Ethel Avenue project in Sherman Oaks. Yeah. That's in Council District 4.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, the intent, I think, has been good for all of us to want to find something from a compassionate standpoint to do with the people that are unhoused, as they want to say, as opposed to homeless. The problem is that we authorized through Proposition H a lot of money from the state, a lot of money locally. And it seems that this need or this desire to be compassionate has really gone against our single family homeowners as to their rights to have a single family home and have that as part of their legacy for their families for the future. And at least the appearance is that that's the direction that everything is going. It may be that it's just, that's coming in on the coattails, but here's the problem on it, Kevin. The perception is reality. That's what we're seeing happening. And it appears to us very clearly that the mayor's office, the state legislature want to destroy single family homes, period. And they just cannot exist. I mean, we look at what the city is planning along Topanga from Ventura all the way up to Mulholland, of taking away all those single family homes to that and rezoning that for it to be apartments and going back 300, 400, 500, 600 feet. I'll leave that to Dennis to come up with a clarification on that. But be aware that that's what's going on. I see that we have a question here from Bob. Bob, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yep. Well, first of all, pardon me, going way back, you've got to ask yourselves, well, why is there truly a housing shortage? And if so, why? If there's people that are homeless, that isn't necessarily because they can't find or can't afford housing. It's many of those people don't want housing, especially if it's a structured environment, and then especially if they have to take care of the appearance of housing and on and on and on. That's somewhat debatable. I understand that. But has anyone taken into consideration the fact that the West Valley already has some of the worst traffic in the entire valley, especially the 101 freeway? And it's only going to get worse if we allow multifamily housing projects. Further, has anybody considered the fact that, okay, how is it that somehow there may be a housing shortage right now, and yet more people are fleeing California than in the last 50 years or so? Just year over year, people are leaving California thanks to stupid rules. So how is it that we still have a further shortage? Well, some of that is low interest rates were that way for so long that big corporations snatched up a lot of houses. But I think a lot of these people, if you're talking about affordable housing and apartments, they're not looking for single family homes. And when you get people like myself and John and others on this call that have worked their entire lives to build up an estate, and then you want somebody to come along and say, well, let's just plop down an apartment building nearby, and all the value gets just destroyed. It's maddening. What do you think the mayor's office thinks about those items?
Yeah, thank you. I that was a lot there, and I think it's well received. In general, I want to just highlight that Executive Directive-1 was built to move with existing zoning. There was a code-related moment. The mayor made the clarification. All of those projects were rejected. They did appeal, and one of them was is approved. Okay, so I understand the larger context of state programs and what's there, but Mayor Bass has been supportive of building housing. We all know we need more housing, but in terms of how we do it, LA has room for single family, multiple family, industrial, commercial, all the zones, and that's important. Through a community plan, and I'm glad you're going to have that presentation next month, that allows local zone changes to occur. The mayor's always said in terms of providing opportunities for housing, we want to work with local neighborhoods to have ideas on how to do that. But in terms of Executive Directive-1, it was trying to build, it was built around existing zoning. The zoning of apartments next to single family, if that's an existing zoning condition that allows that to happen, that's what the zoning is. Normally at this point, you'll have, probably higher density zoning around corridors. Single family areas are in the general plan as single family. 81 is not changing that.
That's SB 9. SB 9 is doing it. It doesn't matter what the city was doing its own zoning. Whatever we're doing in zoning, SB 9 has come in and destroyed that. And I don't see the mayor stepping up to say, let's stop that. I don't see the city council stepping up and saying, let's stop that. I don't see our local congressman here trying to do something to stop that as well. And beyond that, with SB 81, I don't recall that the mayor ever came out here to the Valley to ask any of us our opinions about what that should be, what should be included in it, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. And we were just like, here, this is what we're doing, take it. And that's it. Marty, you've got some questions, go ahead.
No, my comment and my question was basically what you brought up in that last point. Why the mayor didn't actually come out to not only the West Valley, but other places that were threatened because of this potential action that would happen under 81 and say, guys, here's the plan. Do you think it would work? And if here in your town, in your area, and if it wouldn't, and if you don't think so, give me some hints or some ideas of where it would work and how we can fit this in. Just speaking on behalf of Woodland Hills, Warner Center, we tackled that problem with the Warner Center and came up with the Warner Center specific plan. Scott was on the thing, and Dennis, of course. I was there on occasion. I had a stroke then, but
hey,
John
Marty, just so you know that Kevin was very involved in that too.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, but you saw that we worked with everybody and came up with solutions that basically fit the community, and yet, unfortunately, we have a brand new mayor following a ghost mayor who never even knew where the hell the West Valley.
Well, let me jump in just really quick, because I was assigned to the West Valley and I met Dennis during I didn't do the beginning of it, but I was there for that home stretch on the Warner Center specific plan. I think what you're speaking about in terms of and if somebody says it was Woodland Hills doing its part to welcome growth where it might make sense, the answer is yes. The Warner Center plan is very intense, and as part of that, there's a lot of capacity there that should leave a lot of, okay, hands off the residential areas, right? Let's leave them the way they are, or at least let the neighborhood decide.
Yeah, that was the agreement.
I'm letting you know that I take that to work every day. I was part of that Warner Center team. I guess 11 years ago now, in 2013, I remember it well. So the executive directive was building off of local zoning. Very happy, and I think I'm getting the gist of the feedback here. I've gone to the Sherman Oaks neighborhood on behalf of meeting with them. I haven't gone like this, but I've gone to the Sherman Oaks neighborhood to meet with some leaders there. What the mayor is trying to do, make sure that our local programs really reflect what makes LA LA. SB 9, I hear you, John, on that. I don't have a lot of data on that one. That is a state bill, but I can take that feedback back as well. And just happy to be here and wanted to just share that
Well,
I do have some experience on
we
Warner Center.
appreciate that too. David, by the way, you don't have to put your hand up. David, you want to jump in at any point, you can always just do that. Just
Yes.
talk to everybody. You're our guest speaker tonight. So go
Well,
for
I
it.
don't want to do that. I don't want to interrupt anyone. But I
Good.
just want to be conscious of Kevin's time. Maybe you can chime in, Kevin, how many questions you can do right now.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to pick up the kids at 8, but is 8:15 okay? I don't want to leave early. Is that okay,
Right, Kevin,
John?
I got you. That sounds good. But one quick thing. We do have a formal request into the mayor's office for her to come out and speak to us in February at our February meeting. That's enough time, hopefully, for her to actually come out here. She's just been listen, there's a long list of things of people that she's met with. She just has not come out and talked to the community themselves. I know Kathleen Sterling did a nice interview with her and what have you. She does nice television interviews, but she hasn't come out and talked to the people out here. We can do it in person with it. We do it by Zoom or whatever is going to be there. So just be aware of that. Let's get a couple of quick questions in before you need to leave here. Kevin, Dennis, you had your hand up. Go ahead. And Scott will get to you right after.
Yeah, you guys had mentioned the community plans and the effort regarding that. And what we were picking up on, Kevin, in particular, is that there's a community plan that's being presented to us, but there's also some other exercises, things being looked at by the planning department, opportunity zones, for instance, and then transitional zones behind the opportunity zones. And let me just mention what that is for a second. 5 to 8 story buildings along Ventura Boulevard, and then within 150 feet to 350 feet behind those properties, there's a possibility that a zone could come in, a zone could be, written into ordinance that allows 10-unit apartment buildings, courtyard buildings that are up to 3 stories and things. And that's the kind of thing that would devastate those single family neighborhoods behind Ventura Boulevard. And in this case, we're also looking at maps that have Topanga. So, yes, that's the planning department. You're not in the planning department necessarily anymore, but it's the mayor's office that, can the mayor's office do something? We're looking at these things and going, that's different than what's being presented to us in the community plan.
So thank you, Dennis. And I'm always a planner here, so I can't escape either side. But you're right. Just for the audience, we have actually 2 concurrent planning efforts. One is our local community plan program, kind of, and I'm glad you kind of know it, you see it, it's local, it's zoning changes here and there. It's very important to get involved, I think, as John was saying. So hope everyone can participate in that. We also have the state mandated housing element rezoning, which I think Dennis is accurately referring to as includes something called an opportunity zone. Those are corridors that would have incentives for larger development. That is in draft form. It is a citywide program, something to watch. It does include, and I don't think mayor has weighed in on any specifics here, and this is good feedback for me to just take back as it's in draft form. It does include the idea of a buffer zone behind that. I believe that has been revised to not affect single family zones. And this is the theme of today, so I will check. But it would affect lower density multifamily, like courtyard zones.
That's
those
what they're
kind
doing
of
on Topanga, though, Kevin. On Topanga, that's what they're going to end up doing. That's not going to be. It's going to be rezoned out of single family, and to where that can happen, to where all the single family homes there are going to be dramatically affected, all the way back in those areas.
Correct. So I need to check on that, but I think that's under the community plan. So that's a local proposal. It's in draft. I don't want to weigh in on that, but I hear what you're saying on that. The citywide.
Before
Sure.
you have to leave, we have a problem with SB4 on the face-based issues going on too, where there's a problem on that as to when the face-based organizations own a particular piece of property, and the game that's going to now be played is they're going to own their property, but they're going to sell it to somebody else, and they're going to keep one share of stock so that they can end up having that and have somebody else develop in those locations. Right now, they've gotten rid of the time limit as to when they have to own it. Those faith-based organizations can go in now and buy property in other locations and turn around and build on them under SB4. The mayor hasn't. I haven't heard a word out of the mayor's office concerning this. And then lastly, before we get to Scott, if somebody can give me a definition of what is really meant by affordable housing. I know there's a technical definition, but I think people should need to know that. And now I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
No, thank you. And I love this. This is a very technical group. SB4 is a state bill, again, the state, but we're doing a local version of it here. So it's something to watch. It allows land held by religious institutions, kind of your typical church or something like that, has a parking lot to do affordable housing on that or housing on that. The issue that's been raised, and I am aware of this, we have flagged this for the planning department, is that the way it's phrased today, and this goes into that question about ED1, like, well, what could happen? You need to check every little detail. It doesn't have a retroactive policy right now, is my understanding. It has the ability somebody could partner on a piece of land or potentially declare themselves a religious piece of land. It's not certain, but there's a risk there that then they could then go into the program. I think people have asked for the inclusion of some kind of date. Hey, if it's been there 30 years and it's, just been there forever and it has a parking lot in the back and they want to build some affordable housing, maybe let's talk about that, but not having unintended consequences. So we're actually very aware of that. We have been meeting with planning. It's not in front of the mayor yet. It's still in the planning draft form, but thank you, John, for that. And then you mentioned, I'm sorry, the last piece that you mentioned,
affordable housing. What the heck is affordable housing?
Affordable housing. We call them lowercase affordable and uppercase affordable. Lowercase affordable can just be anything that is deemed to be, reasonably priced, right? Somebody's been living there a long time. It's a rental unit. They may have a stabilized rental unit. They may have moved in 20 years ago. And that's very important to make sure that that's a resource for the neighborhood. Capital affordable, I call it, is a covenanted unit that's set to a certain level of area median income. When we say area, it's the city of LA, but usually it's pegged to 80% of median. So that's just slightly below the midpoint, 60% or 30%. That would be extremely low income. So those are those units that are codified and reserved for a period of 55 years, 99 years, that are then eligible for local or, people in the community to move in that are income qualified.
And be aware that we're concerned about how that's going to be monitored as time goes on. If someone comes into affordable housing, what ends up changing? What do they do? Do they evict them out of those locations and all the rest of that? Those are potential problems. Scott, you got your hand up. Let's get to you. I want to get Kevin out in time here.
Yeah, I got to say, Dennis and John both stepped on my questions. So
that's our intent.
One of the things I was regarding the last one was the religious covenant on that. You start getting into situations now. What is a religion? Not only do you have to own a portion of it, but what in the United States, what is a religion? You could declare yourself a religion. So all of a sudden you qualify. And I understand there has to be private ownership, but one religion to another religion, where does that stand? And I appreciate that question. But the second one, it's not really a question, but if you have a situation like we have right now that's going on, about to go on at Topanga Canyon Boulevard, not only with the rezoning of the street, but you have a situation where that whole area is single-family homes, generally single-family homes. Now you have a development down there that I believe is either 80 or 88 units. Okay, that's a large development, but that's not even the worst part of it. They permitted that with 0 parking spaces. So now you have 80 units that are going to be impacting the neighbors. I mean, it's going to significantly impact the neighbors. And where does a neighbor have recourse against the city for, in my opinion, an illegal taking? Because that's really what it comes down to. You're taking their rights by doing what you're doing without any remuneration. So I'm sorry, I don't want to step on any floor, but
Kevin,
how do you handle it?
Hold on, Kevin, before you do, we got Perry wants to ask a question, but I don't know if it's intended for you. Perry, if it's intended for Kevin, leave your hand up. If it's not, bring it down so we get Kevin out of here quickly. Kevin, go ahead and respond to Scott's.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody. This is quite the group in terms of knowledgeable. So I'm really pleased to be here and would love to stay in touch. Religious, exactly right. Obviously, the government's not going to pick and choose hopefully, which religions are more appropriate than others, but it's a risk, and it's just something to think about. How that's defined is really important. How you become a religious. I mean, some of us have, you can marry anyone. You have to determine go through some class, but how that works, which is great. I'm talking about becoming a marriage officiant under state law or using a religious exemption. There is very broad, right? Under the I wrote it down here by my handwriting. State law. Parking. Yes, parking. That's what I wrote down. So Scott is also mentioning that there's an additional state law, and I'm not saying the planning department has done no parking zones downtown. It actually was not controversial. Downtown is what we call surrounded by other areas that don't have parking. It's not like it's a corridor where all the people just start parking in the residential neighborhood behind it. It's downtown. It's hard to park anywhere. There's transit. Great. No one, I mean, I'm telling you, honestly, almost nobody opposed having zero parking downtown. In a neighborhood, the city has not done that. The state law, there's a new state law, the same bill that I mentioned before, I believe it's AB 2334, that allows zero parking if you are within a transit area that's broadly defined. I think it's within half a mile of a qualifying transit station. So those, I've heard that loud and clear from many neighborhoods that, hey, this is really creating an impact on the next street over, or, you know, sucking up available parking that may be there for somebody else. I don't have a lot to offer there, but I just am pointing back to that state law under that case. I don't know the case you're talking about, but I would imagine it probably is within, I don't know if it's within half a mile of a qualifying transit stop. Maybe that's what they used.
Well, Kevin, we're going your hard time tonight for sure. You're going to be exhausted. You got to go get your kids. But listen, we need to have you come back at some point in time too. But here's the message, probably if nothing else, that there are some problems that are out here with the planning stuff and the stuff that the state is trying to do. We need people that have got good minds like yours and David's too, that say, listen, we got to protect our community out here. Let's get the mayor on the ball here to start coming out, at least if nothing else, using the bully pulpit to come out and say this is just wrong. We need to get the state legislature to stop it. We need to have planning do something different with what they're doing. We need to have more input to the community so that we don't have at least this impression that this stuff is being jammed down our throats and we're going to lose it. That's why people are leaving out here. They don't feel like they have any voice anymore. So if there's anything you take back to the mayor from your standpoint, we would hope that you will do so and that you'll come back and visit with us and take a more active participation in these processes here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I don't think I've seen a more efficient meeting in a long time. And I know David's able, are you able to stay, David, and listen to a little bit? So thank you.
We got more questions for David. David's not done yet.
David and I can also, I mean, I can do what I can, but on the February date, please do, we'll confer and make sure we can get that in the stack to be considered. So thank you very much.
It's in that was formally given over to by email to the calendar people.
I'm not surprised.
And
okay.
And Vahid has also been copied on that as well. Kevin, thank you so much. Have a blessed night. Enjoy the holidays with your family.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah,
thank you, Dennis. Shout out to Dennis. Good to see you, buddy. Okay. Thanks, Don. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Good night to you. Well, David, you're back on the hot seat. You're back on the hot seat. So it's we try to get information out here, and we were obviously pressing a little bit faster on things because we want to get Kevin out of here in time too. You, however, we could drag out for the rest of the evening and not feel guilty about that. So we're
I go to bed late. I go to bed around midnight. So
all right, well, so we could fill that up pretty easily on that.
Yeah.
First of all, let's go back. I think that Ms. Perry had a question that was there before, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Perry, if you want to put your hand up, there she goes. Go ahead, and you are unmuted, and you can go ahead. Go ahead and mute yourself.
Yeah.
There you go. Your question, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I'm Don Perry, and my wife and I have lived up here in Woodland Hills for 35 years on Rosario Road. This might be a lateral question to some of the subjects at hand, but there is a direct knock-on relationship between what I'm going to ask and some of these issues that are happening now that are going to impact kind of radiating out from the area they're discussing. Starting with it's sort of a two-part a statement and a question. Across from us, there is we live on a substandard street up here. It's and the roads are at some points very, very small. The development that's gone on up here has been limited in the in all the time we've been here because the roads cannot handle it. There is and they've done a pretty good job of keeping some of the development from getting out of hand, though. Admittedly, there were developers that would come in on weekends, cut trees illegally, and then they would kind of get a slap on the hand, or sometimes they would be told they can't build up here anymore. So the first part of this, directly across from us, they are, and I was at the Zoom meeting, they're building a pretty large house, much larger than the other houses here, and much taller. It's a much it seems out of character with the neighborhood.
Do come to a question now. We have a lot of people with some questions.
Okay, well, this seemed to be really out of keeping with how they build here, and that goes to the question of on Mulholland, which above us is unpaved from about Canoga or Tosca, probably through to Encino. There is a fire break there, but this was an issue that came up years ago with Gordon Murley, and we went to try to fight this because they were trying to pave Mulholland. If they do that, that will be like an alternative to the 101 or Ventura Boulevard. And
David, be very much aware that our organization has opposed that paving of the dirt Mulholland forever. And if that's a major recreational area up here for everybody. It's used a lot of by people that are doing biking and recreation. There used to be some horses going back and forth. There's been some elk up in that particular area, I think, or some deer at least. Wild animals too. It is truly just a precious location to it. Be aware that that the mayor needs to make sure that anybody in planning or council office, what have you, that doesn't get touched at all. So, Ms. Perry, I need to have a question from you because otherwise we're going to move on. There's other people that need to be talking.
Right. Well, the question was whether that would get developed, but also why are they suddenly allowing these huge houses to be built up here on these substandard roads which can't bear the traffic or the parking?
Yeah, we're in that same problem, David, with a lot of these that are basically this whole thing of trying to find some housing for people, and they're coming in these areas and building. And very honestly, my comment to a lot of the people that try to build up here is that these areas have not been built on since the flood from Noah, and there's a reason why nobody's built on them for that period of time. They're just pretty much unbuildable. And Dennis, as the architect, was first to point out to me that they can build on anything, but there's a cost factor to it, and there's a long-term factor on. I've got one that's going to go on probably across from my location. That's going to probably take 2 years for them to do, cost them a fortune with the time to do it. They'll be pounding and it's just going to be a nightmare in that process. And it seems that if people are just going, well, we can do this now as a matter of right, that's a problem. And the state legislature is allowing this to go on. And we haven't heard really anybody from the city come in and say, listen, state, stay out of our business. The city is taking care of what we need to do. Woodland Hills has done it with a specific plan. We're taking affirmative actions to try to have that local control. And yet the state, Wiener, and some of the other people that are up there, are proposing legislation that's trying to take that away. Where do you stand with the mayor and trying to make sure that we have that local control and fighting what's going on with the state legislature up there? Is she just giving up on it and forget about it? Or we're just left to be slowly twisting the wing with whatever the state legislature wants to do? Where are we?
So there's a lot of stuff right there. I guess we'll go with the initial question. So the paving of Dirt Mulholland, that's, these are things that I'm going to have to, look into and get more information about. So I changed my name on my screen. That's my email address. So for anyone that wants to email me, go there. I don't know. There's no comment part of this Zoom, so I can't comment it. Then so we're in the Kevin Keller territory with these questions, but I can, talk about them a little bit. I'd have to get more information. It sounds like what the man was talking about was some developments. They may be, two-story homes. Are these kind of like single-family homes? Are they apartment buildings, multifamily? And I just would need to get information on what the addresses are, as much information, and then I can start to do my investigating and get you all a good answer. But would love to do that. John, if you can, it sounds like you had some cases in mind that you can bring up. If you can, send me those, I would love to.
We can certainly do that. Just be aware on the Mulholland that nobody's got any plans that I'm aware of to try to pave that location up there. There has been some movements in the past on that to try to do that. There's a development that's way up on top of the hill that wanted to do some subdivisions and be happy to have the city come in and pave that road so they'd be able to sell the subdivisions up there. That's a major recreational area up here that we just don't have available anymore. And I think
I'll say a comment on that. And so the mayor is very, she truly cares about the environment from the perspective of, climate change all the way to environmental factors going on locally. But so that's something that she kind of champions herself, is the environment. So of course I can't speak on, the views for this specific area, but I can also take the information back to her.
Okay, well, I think just keep watching what's going on for out here to make sure that somebody doesn't step on it. Marty, go ahead.
Yeah,
no.
David, I think just first a comment and then a request or suggestion. Number one, I think the developers, to answer Terry's question or ask, a lot of the developers these days have the feeling of, well, hell, I'll just build it and it'll be there, and then I'll let these people living in the larger homes and whatever, they'll put pressure on the mayor, and she'll, or not just she, but anybody that's sitting in the mayor's seat will cave and say, just pave the damn thing and whatever, and not pay any attention to it. Which leads me to the suggestion of, it might be a good idea for you to reach out individually, and anybody that's on your staff, I don't know how you're situated, to actually go door to door to the people that are up there in that area and say, what are your feelings on paving dirt Mulholland? Should we do it or shouldn't we do it? Doesn't mean that we're going to do it, but we've had some questions raised, and if the general tenor of the comments back to you is no, leave it the way it is. We want it natural, rural, and everything else. At that point, have the mayor speak up and say, I've looked into this and the people don't want it, and I agree with them. And
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Feedback from you there, Marty. Right now, there's no plans on doing anything of that nature up there at all, and to stir that up at this particular stage when there's no interest in it, I think the time and effort can be spent on a lot of other issues that really are
all right, just
having more of a dramatic effect upon us. But yeah, I think
you can be sure I'd be out there though. So yeah. I would be out there door to door.
Gotcha. A couple of quick questions to you on David. I saw coming up. First of all, somebody JB wanted to know if your position is a paid position.
This is paid. I'm happy that it's paid. I'm able to feed myself. I get to get some housing. So yes, it is paid.
Okay, and there we go. Also, there was a question about do you live in the Valley?
I live in Hollywood, so I guess I would call that Valley adjacent.
Valley adjacent. All right. Well, that sounds like something a realtor would probably put on their.
I'll say I would rather live in the Valley than Hollywood.
Very fine. Dennis, you had a question, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, ask the question that if he wants to do any research about like why the houses are being built, he can go on the planning website and he can look for the hillside ordinance, and he can also look for the Mulholland specific plan, and I'm sure the people are following these things, and there's rules, but obviously they get to do things that maybe you might not like or agree with. You might want to look at you might want to research those two documents.
Yeah, and you also there's also talk about trying to get rid of the Gerard tract, for example, or some of the other specific plans that are up here, because they sort of get in the way of people, is what the idea is. They get in the way of people. That's just this old stuff. Be aware that we've lived with these rules for a long period of time. They're good ones. They were done for good reasons up in these areas. Up in the hillsides here that you may not know, but we are in, as you heard before, some substandard streets up here. For many, many years, the city did not want to take over control of those and pave them. I know the street out by me was not paved since 1920. And eventually we finally got it done because the city said, all right, we'll do something with those. But we're in a very unique community that's up here in Woodland Hills. And both with what was decided to be done with Dennis and Scott and Kevin and a lot of other people that worked on the specific plan, Marty too, wanted to make something that was going to be really unique out here, and developed some plans that provided for some really high density locations that are down in the valley portion, and also provide for good structured housing, good structured commercial properties and what have you, in certain designated areas. We take great pride with that, David, out here, and I think the mayor needs to understand that we don't want anybody really messing with our community unless they've got an upgrade to it. And from a practical standpoint, that's our mantra. If you're coming into our community, if it's an upgrade, we'll listen to you. If it's not, go do it someplace else. We're not interested in something that's going to cause us problems out here. Marty, you got another question? Go ahead.
No, it was just something that I was going to also say, following what I was talking about up there. The thing here, David, I think, is that for so long, through a number of different people that have held the mayor's seat, we've had the feeling in the West Valley there's nobody standing up for us. Our representative, our assemblyman, absolutely won't even speak to us. Our state senator had the answer when challenged about why he doesn't stand up to Scott Wiener, said, well, I have to work with him on some other committees, so I don't want to cause any problems. There's nobody standing up. Somebody needs to be the figurehead and say, hey, you guys who supposedly represent all these areas, different areas of Los Angeles, you need to start listening to your people. You need to stop the stupidity. And that's what we're seeing coming out. And the only one that has the validity right now is this mayor. She's new. She still has a lot of believers in her. And she needs to step forward and speak out and stand up for the people she's serving. And we haven't seen any of that. Not in the past, not since Vera Ghost, frankly.
Yeah,
I'll speak on that a little bit. And so I'm new to this position. I've only been here 2 months. But one of the things that I've personally been doing is going to neighborhood councils. You all know your neighborhood councils. You have a really good one in your area. And what I've heard, I think about 2 or 3 times, and so I have about 13 from that 13, 3 of those have told me that they've never had someone from a previous mayor's office at their meetings since existence. And so right now we have, Mayor Bass, and a key thing for her was making sure that we have enough people out there that are out there in our communities, talking to people, getting, feedback, getting their input. And so this is it's a perfect example of that. We're here. We have 3 reps in the Valley. Traditionally, that would be 2. And I'll say in my position, I represent the mayor, but I also, am representing her in the West Valley, and I want to be an advocate for you, everyone here, to the mayor, and make sure that we have all of your feedback, and make sure that I can, do my best to help you in my capacity. And so I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Marty.
We got a question from Phil Bloom. Phil, you're open up. Go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks for putting this together, David. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Sure, it's not easy facing a lot of these people when a lot of it is, critiques and some questions where we're not getting answers. My question is, it's broad in the sense that it covers the state, but it also is affecting Woodland Hills essentially a lot, and especially in Walnut Acres, there's a big issue. But also where I live just south of 101, where Bristol Farms is, right off Mulholland and Avenue St. Louis. There is a residential treatment center, in quotations. It's really just a drug rehab, but they use, politically correct terminology to allow it for single home dwellings for up to 6 patients. It's a state issue, but I don't see the city actually helping in terms of stopping these facilities being in where families are, where children are. My street, every house but 3 has children in it, and this facility was allowed to be opened. They have drug abuse. These people are coming in. Some of them have mental issues, and that's fine. We understand these people need care, but need to be where children are. We also are right down the street, 0.2 miles away from Calabash Elementary, one of the top elementary schools in LUSD. There seems to be no laws that allow these, that stop these facilities from growing and expanding. They can have as many as they want within a facility, within a street. Every 300 feet, you can have a new home with a facility. And it seems like no one in the city seems to care. This has been a growing problem for the last decade. Walnut Acres has 4 of them. For 4 years, they've been fighting it. And now the assistant DA finally decided after 4 years to go after one of them because there was some prostitution, some drug problems. My question is there any care from the city, from Karen Bass, that can put pressure? Like, I understand it's a state law, but LA has a lot of power when it comes to zoning, or even saying, we're not going to follow this fully, actually, to say, you know what, these facilities should be in commercial zones. There is zero reason why people with these kind of problems need to be surrounded by children where families are being raised.
Thank you for that. And I think I'll just dive right into it. So the mayor, she cares about public safety, community safety. She wants everyone to be able to walk around their community, feel safe. She wants everyone to be able to go to a store, not have to worry about crime or something affecting them. Now that's a difficult situation, right? It's a difficult thing to kind of make happen, but that's where she stands. Now for this specific, case, these are one of those things where I would have to learn more. Now, obviously, if we have a state law in place, there's that, just like with housing, which we were talking about earlier, the city does have to follow those.
David, there is, but this is something that's been coming up over the past time, especially in Walnut Acres from a number of years back. There is nothing that would prevent the mayor from getting on her bully pulpit and say, listen, these places need to be listed. We don't even have a list of where they are. The city can be able to do that by their trying to keep control of the zoning. Secondly, they can make a requirement as to who's in those particular facilities and whether or not they are drug related or whether or not they're crime related. Third, whether or not there is medical attention that's going on in those locations, and if they're being properly monitored. That's maybe something that the county can end up doing because they've got control of the mental health issues. But the city has talked about possibly putting in their own mental health department here too. But there are some things that can be done, I think, from a zoning standpoint to do this. This is just an atrocity, and it's creating some real serious problems. The major thing, very frankly, is we don't know where they are. And we don't know where they're operating. They do in Walnut Acres because they've seen the problems they've had. But you could have one, the other people listening here could have one in your own neighborhood and don't even know it because of the state law requires it to be quiet. But I believe there can be some zoning that's done with that. And you need to take a serious look at that, David, and come back to the mayor on it because they are really congregating out here in the valley. Why? Because they can buy cheaper houses out here than what they can in some other parts of the city. And they kind of like the bigger houses that are here because they can house more people in. We're hearing stories they're even putting some basement areas in that so they can end up doing more individuals on that. Cheryl, it looks like you've got a question here. You can go ahead and unmute.
I would just like to chime in. So
yeah,
for
please,
Philip, please, send me more information by email, and then I'm gonna, look into it on my end too.
Okay. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay, I would like to speak to the sober living, having had the experience of living next door to a sober living facility. And my suggestion, David, to the city, when you're looking at solutions for things that you can do that still comply with all the state requirements, is that you look to these people have to apply to the state for a license. My experience with it is that they, as other people have said, they pack as many people in as possible. They're required to have somebody living 24 hours a day in the facility to make sure that it's run correctly. They do not. There is rampant drug abuse. There is drunk driving everywhere. I had 3 years of hell before the city finally shut this house down. But if the city itself, when in conjunction with developing a listing of who is a licensed sober living facility, because they get huge reimbursements from the state to run these facilities. If they had requirements that were zoning or city ordinance type things to where they had regular inspections to make sure that, no, guess what? You don't have a lot of, bottles and bottles of alcohol. You don't have drunk driving going on. And that there is health and safety issues because the house next door to me had 15 people living in a single family dwelling. So those things, I think, is something that Mayor Bass could take aim at when used in conjunction, the LAPD knows very well what are the problems, issues, because they were very successful in looking at things. And as the homeowners that are infected, if you call every single time and file a formal complaint with the police department, you can build a really good record that way. And so my suggestion to you is if you are having a situation, anybody on this call, that you start documenting it and you document it through the city things that it makes it very challenging and difficult for the city to turn down and say, oh, I had no idea, when it's in black and white.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I think with that, so, thank you for the suggestion. I'll take it back. But there's also this thing where for all of these issues, we want to get the council offices looped in. So definitely do that. And I think you spoke at the end. So people always have the option of, there's nuisance cases for various things in your neighborhood. So if you have, particular neighbor that is constantly playing, loud music at night and it's disrupting you, you can start going down the nuisance route and get some action to stop that. And I think in cases like these, if there are, if it's a nuisance, it's something to look into as well.
David, we're also hearing, I don't know how truthful it is, that most of these people that are in there are on insurance payments. And when the insurance runs out, they dump them. They dump them back out in the streets. Doesn't matter whether they're fixed, so to speak, or not. They're still broken at that stage, and now out in the streets, and they're broken people. And now we got problems with them coming out. Now, whether or not there's a lot of statistics on that or not, I do not know. But I think you need to take a look at that. And there may be something, of course, that's going on with the insurance issues that may create some more problems with that. A difficult situation, I think, all the way around. But we need to obviously take a good look at what can be done with it. I'm curious about what we can do now. If we shift a little bit of areas. Let's talk about Metro. The mayor is president of the Metro board, and we have been hearing, and the state legislature, for example, says, well, we're going to give you special exemptions if you are along a corridor that is serviced by buses, Ventura Boulevard, Sherman Way, other locations. If you're served by those buses at that point, we're going to let you get away with not having the parking that's going to be associated with those locations, because we know you're going to take those buses, right? We want you to take this. We're going to force you to take those buses. But here's the problem. We just had another stabbing, another killing that just happened on those buses. There's a call now for there to be some type of police on those buses, which again is pulling people away from other stuff they're going to be doing. This is just a nightmare from a practical standpoint. People who would like to use the buses just won't. And as a result, all this beautiful idea of let's get people out of their cars, let's get rid of this congestion, let's get rid of the smog, is not going anyplace, because there are crazy people on these buses. That one fellow was shot in the back of the head. Somebody sat down behind him, pulled out a gun and shot him in the back of the head. No one just got stabbed the other day. What is the mayor doing as president of the Metro board? Because she has authority now to do something. It's not just a straight city issue, but she got authority. What is she doing to get better security and for us to have some safety that's going on with the bus system?
So these are, obviously very terrible, horrific situations that are happening. And, I'm new. I have to use a caveat right there. But, I know that the mayor, is still behind that, caring for public safety, that idea of if you use the bus, you should be safe. If you walk from your corner to a store, you ought to be safe. In any community in LA, that's the goal. So it applies to Metro as well. And I believe the latest thing they did was increasing police officers dedicated to Metro itself. Further things related to Metro, I can't fully speak on myself. And I think we have someone in our office that can, but I'd love to get them to get you all an answer that's kind of more concrete than mine.
Well, I think if nothing else, that you got to recognize and go back to the mayor, let her know very clearly that we don't want to use the buses out here. We don't feel safe in that process to it. I think that's really a big issue for that.
And we want people to use the buses. We want everyone to use the Metro. We want people to use the buses. And you're right. This, especially right now, we're having that big spike of safety concerns.
We got it. Chris Rowe would like to know about if you're going to be able to have any discussions about the bike lane they want to put up on Topanga. As you may know, they want to run a bike lane basically from all the way from Mulholland all the way up to the 118 freeway, and probably one of the most heavily used locations. And here comes back this thing of getting us out of their cars. They're now going to take away a lane in that process in order to use those bikes in that location. And we're it seems remember impressions sometimes become our realities. It seems that the city and the state is doing everything it possibly can to congest our roads so that they hope that we'll get out of our cars and start using these buses where they're killing people. And it doesn't seem like that's working. It doesn't seem like it's making any sense. I don't think I've ever seen anybody biking on Topanga Canyon.
I have.
Well, okay, maybe
Over by Stony Point though, so it's kind of that area right there.
I may need to get out more often, but is there something, and again, that's not funded yet, but it will be because there was a proposition that was just passed to provide some funding for that stuff. So that's not funded yet, but they're going to do some things up there to make that road basically narrower. What's going on? What's the mayor's position with that? And are you aware of it? And what are your thoughts?
I am aware of it. I learned about that from West Hills Neighborhood Council in Chatsworth, right? So that's coming across the majority length of Topanga Canyon. I don't know the mayor's position, but I do know that this is a state highway, and so you've kind of mentioned that.
Correct.
And what that means is it's owned entirely by the state. And this project is coming from the state of California, Caltrans. And the last that I've heard of it, or the kind of like community update, is that Chatsworth Neighborhood Council had contacted Councilmember Lee's office to kind of like get more information or get a town hall put on. And so I'll, be sure to loop you all in on that. And if it doesn't work, getting the council member, talking to Caltrans, I got to do my work and, try and find my Caltrans contact to, get people information on that.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the issue is that, again, the bully pulpit, whether it be for the council members that are along those areas between 13 and 11, and also the mayor as well coming in and saying, and the entire city council going, listen, stay out of it. Let us make those suggestions to you rather than you come around and say, this is what we're doing in your community. Question, the 911 lines are taking about 15 minutes to be able to answer. Is there anything being done to assist that, get those time periods down? I don't know if it's a funding issue or what's going on with that, but it seems to be kind of crazy.
Well, these are, I'll do that caveat, another area that I'm not an expert in. But if we go look at the mayor's budget, most recent budget, there's significant increases for police, and we are keeping, our fire department staffed, and we're still hiring our firefighters and our medics. So from that perspective, we're doing what we can. We're trying to hire as many officers as we can. I don't know if the backlog is due to understaffing from the 911 operators side, or if it's from the EMS or the PD side. But I can look more into that. And
it's tough no matter what. There's really a statement from CV here wanted to let you know that we don't want ourselves to become another downtown Los Angeles. We want you to take back to the mayor. We like our San Fernando Valley area. We like our cars. We like for people to basically be in these nice neighborhoods that we have out here. Tell the mayor not to allow anybody to push large amounts of developments out here. It's just not what we want. It's not really what goes on for the valley. It's not the type of things that we're really into out here. That's sort of the comment, if you will, I think from a lot of individuals up here. Let's see, we have Mr. Perry. You can go ahead and unmute yourself again, but now keep yourself to a question. Let's not get lengthy here. We run out of time. Go ahead, Mr. Perry.
This goes back to the substandard streets that are up here, and I'm not sure if there really was an answer given to this question, but how are they justifying the new developments and big developments on substandard streets for some time where you can't even pass with two cars? I fail to understand how they can allow those kind of big developments to happen when you have a street that's built in the 1920s and certainly looks like that, but it doesn't seem like there's been any consideration for the other people on the street and the impact that that is going to have, other than widening, which is impossible because they would be tearing into people's, they're taking down all kinds of trees, protected trees, properties which are right on the road. What is the city's position on that?
So I believe that would be a city planning issue, right? And I can't speak specifically, to your area because I don't know, exactly what you're speaking to. But maybe they had a zoning rule that, in the past, houses could only be 1 story, and then as you go further, then they could be 2-story, et cetera. And that changes over time. But it would be planning, and that's something that I would have to, connect with them about.
There is another issue that's going on. I think the mayor can take a position to stance on as far as pushing on things. The substandard roads that we have up here are really a safety issue. We had problems that were up in Oakland where they had some fires that were up there. They lost a lot of people that died because they had one car that got disabled on the roadways and people could not get out. These roads up here in a portion of the hillsides, not just here, but all the way across the valley area, the substandard roads do not allow the fire department even to get in. And they come through here every once in a while and through those roads trying to make sure that they can. But that's a major safety issue. And the more buildings that are going on in those locations are increasing the amount of use of those particular roads. And they really should not be utilized the way that they are. It's really, I think, a safety issue. But that's something, again, I think to take back to the mayor's office and see if there's something they can do. Scott, you got your hand up. Go ahead if you're going to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just want to, I hope you're getting from this that everybody in this meeting, whether it's the panel, whether it's people are listening, we want the mayor to succeed. We want her to be successful because if she's successful, we're successful. That brings up a couple of things, such as, recently we had a discussion with our councilman about this raise that is going to the city. The city's $350 million in arrears or is short on the budget. And there's this enormous raise going on over the next couple few years for the city employees. Our councilman said they deserve it. I'm not disputing that. When from the private sector, if I'm giving somebody a raise, it's because of their job performance. And I could tell you that there are departments that are so lacking in reasonable job performance, and yet they're going to get a raise. And I don't see anything from anybody, whether it's the city council, whether it's the mayor, and I believe the mayor is the one who oversees the departments. Why is there not some type of stipulation that you have to perform to get a raise? You have to come into the office to get a raise. You work for the people of the city. You are not a private sector. So I don't understand why there's no correlation between job performance and raises with the city, other than the unions obviously got their arms twisted behind their backs. But the point is, there should be something from her position that says you want more money, you got to perform like you're worth more money. I think that's important, and that we don't see, and that's a big gap between the private sector and the public sector, and I think that needs to be worked on very significantly. And the last,
how about we do these in order, if that's okay?
Yeah, please.
I have a bad memory, so like the mayor, you can give her 10 questions, and she'll respond to all in order. I'm slow. I'm only one at a time. So for this specific question, right, and this, I guess for everyone here, this kind of gets to the core of what's different between the private and public sectors. And one of the things is, if you've heard this before, if you work in the government, there's security with that. You become it's a classified position. You have to go through a significant process to fire someone. Whereas if you go in the private sector, hey, are you performing? If you're a lawyer and you're only putting in 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week, you're not cutting it. You need to do more. And basically, why this is the case is that from that security, you're not going to make as much, but you're going to have security with your job. From the private sector, you can make a lot more money, but there's that risk that kind of comes with it. And so that's how I kind of, see it and classify it. But I think, I mean, you do have the correct perspective, which is we want everyone in, any position in government to be doing the best that they can and providing the services the best that they can, and really helping out all of our residents to their utmost. And so we see that in our office, the mayor's office, and she has kind of direct control over us. But that's her view too. She wants, the city to kind of, be helped by everyone to, she wants everyone to be working their best, to be doing as much as they can. And I think this is probably a factor for these things like that. Your second question.
That was the, it's really not a question, but maybe you have a contact, maybe with Caltrans, that you could get them to fix that rumble strip they built into the freeway now from Woodland Hills all the way to Sherman Oaks or beyond, that is causing near accidents because people don't want to drive on the strip, so they're driving over the yellow line, or they drive, 6 inches away from the center divider. I know that's a Caltrans issue, but maybe you have somebody who just passes through city council and you could say, fix it. You did it on both sides of the freeway. I mean, fix it.
It's something I can definitely pass on. And when I'm doing the Topanga Canyon work, we'll add that in there and make sure that we get that in.
So you don't come in from Hollywood every day. We in the West Valley have to drive over that rumble strip the full 10, 15 miles.
I've been on it. Yeah, it's well, I have a off-road vehicle, so it's maybe not as bad for me as you all.
We got a question from Chris Rowe. Chris, we only got about 5 minutes here, so make sure you get to a question pretty quickly because we don't want to take up too much more of David's time. He's been very generous with that. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, I just want to bring up ADUs, please. I'm seeing in my neighborhood, which of course is just south of Victory between Fallbrook and Shoup, we have very large lots in some of the older neighborhoods, similar to just south of there. And I've seen 2 ADUs be built, and they're so out of character for this area. And I think a third one may be being built. One's on sale and one's on Gilmore. And I think a second one may be going in on Gilmore. And again, these are between Shoup and Sale. And I've heard at the West Hills Neighborhood Council that this is significantly impacting West Hills in general. So can David comment on ADUs or anything? Thank you.
Yes. So like this is a thing. So I went back to my childhood home. I was stopping by, and there's these are all single family homes. They're all built in the 1950s. They look the exact same. I think they're kind of boring, but it's a lot of single family homes. And you kind of look around the corner and you see a property with an ADU. I think it's like a garage converted into a 2-story building. And this community, like the community, the city, they don't want something like that because it's out of character. But this is another situation where state law comes in and makes something like that legal, and it's everyone in the state has to follow that. And it's in relation to the housing crisis. So if the state, I think, is coming from the perspective of if we're not building enough housing, and we're not building these multifamily homes and corridors and doing all this kind of stuff, then we need to look towards other areas to build it. And I think this is where that comes in. But it's a state issue.
Well, David, the issue always comes back to our quality of life and whether or not those ADUs are increasing it or decreasing it, and whether or not the single family homes are a better way to be living, or to be living with multiple homes on the same piece of property. And listen, we recognize compassion, but by the same token, there needs to be some compassion also for those that are living in the single family homes, and that we don't overpopulate the area by taking away and destroying those homes and destroying that legacy that's there. You can imagine if you have 3 or 4 homes in a particular neighborhood, and right smack in the middle of them, all of a sudden they want to put up 4, 6 buildings, apartments in that location, and having people come in with more cars coming in, what that's going to do to the price value of those particular locations, what it does to the quality of life, what it does to them psychologically, what it does to just oversaturating everybody here. So hopefully you'll take that message back to the mayor and let them know that we're concerned out here. We're concerned about the quality of life. We try to make sure that we stay in touch with the details of what's going on. We don't like the idea of somebody just saying, this is what we're going to do, and whether you like it or not, and we're making those decisions for you. Scott, you can give a quick comment in here, but we're running out of time.
It's not a comment. It actually, I forgot it with my question.
Go ahead.
Because of the budget condition that the city's in, what services can the citizens plan on having cut and reduced to try to make up for this budget shortfall?
Specifics, details, that'll be hard for me, but I do know the majority, like the big kind of budget change and the tactic that they use. And if you look at the state, you can see what they use as well. It's the removal of what are called like vacant positions. And these are positions that maybe in the previous budget cycle, previous budget year, departments have said, well, maybe we want 5 typists, but they only really had 2 typists for the following year and didn't hire those 3. But that was still allocated to their budget. And so let's say you made, 50,000 per typist, that'd be 150,000 that was in that budget for them that wasn't used. And so there's these changes, like the fire department was budgeted a certain amount last year, but ended up using, I think, 100 million or more for the year because they needed it. Maybe it was overtime or equipment and things like that. And that's where it went. I'll tell you that for all of your services that really matter to you, your police, your firefighters, your pothole repairs, your street sweepers, none of those are getting cut. We're actively hiring kind of like these, so-called essential, well, they are essential services. And that's an active process that we're doing. If anything is getting cut, which I can't speak to per more administrative side, things, like a project manager or something like that, but it's not the things that are like really essential to you, living in LA.
Well, David, we're also hearing, by the way, on this cutting the budgets. I was just talking to some of the fire department people, and the EMTs have old medications. They're using old medications on stuff because they don't have new stuff that's there because the budget's not allowing them to get new things. I mean, I think if somebody, I don't know what medications are old. Maybe they're not a problem, but if they're using saline bags and they're old ones, I don't know. I'd be happy if my relative was in one of those. There are things I think that they need to look at where they're making some cuts at and making sure those funds are going to places where they really need it. So, David, listen, you've given us a great deal of information. I hope that we've given you some good information too. And we deeply appreciate that. First, we're happy to meet you and know that you're here, and we'll certainly interact with you more. And by the same token, if there's things and issues that come up that you see, feel free to get back in touch with us. I hope that you understand that we are pretty well informed on a lot of the issues that are going on. We try to.
Yes, everyone should have like a pat on the back for how well informed we are.
We're not going to let people take over our community without a fight. That's really the bottom line.
Yeah.
And it's our community, and we've been here for years, and we want to make sure that we have a good quality of life in that process. And you can let the mayor know that we're here. We're going to be tough on the stuff we need to be tough on, but don't take that to be wrong. That doesn't mean that we're not pleased with what's here. We're not pleased with the work, other things that are being done by the mayor and by you and by others as well. But listen, we want to thank you for your time, for your efforts that you put into this. You've handled questions very well, for being a new one that's out here on the block at this point. Thank you for bringing Kevin in too to give some more details on some things. We're appreciative of those details. So listen, to you and to everyone that's still online with us, have yourself a wonderful, wonderful, blessed Memorial Day. Enjoy your family. enjoy the time off. Get out and do some walking around in some of the parks and enjoy this.
Canoga Park has a Memorial Day parade.
They do, and that park, that's a great parade, and enjoy the things that this city has to offer for it. There's a lot of things that are out here. Enjoy. Just don't sit around watching television, what have you. Enjoy this weekend. Enjoy your family, and thank you all for participating here. Listen, to all of you, we thank you, and join the organization. We're here to try to help, and we continue to try to do so. And listen, to all of you, good night to you. God bless to all of you. Have yourself a wonderful holiday. Take care.